Hello and welcome everyone to RRTV's ongoing live coverage of this week's edition of Monday Night Lights. You've seen the opening, you've heard the theme song. Are you ready and raring to go? Mr. Timmy Gorkrotcher joining me in commentary again, mate. Are you all pumped for tonight's action?
Alex, how you doing? Thanks for having me here again. And yeah, I am. It's round 3 of MNL for this season. The first 2 rounds were fantastic, and we're geared up for another great race tonight.
Absolutely, mate. Coming live, of course, from Zolder, round 3 of the official season here tonight. We've got 15 laps with some of the best Skippy drivers going around. Strength of field tonight, a tick over 3,000, which well and truly puts us in the top 5 for the week. A little bit down on numbers. I think the daylight savings has caught a few people out tonight. I know there were a few people in the forum saying they got caught out a little bit of confusion, but great to see we have still got a fantastic lineup of regulars. And I have to say, some guys we haven't seen before until this change of daylight saving times, Tim.
Yeah, no, it looks like it worked out relatively conveniently. We've got a lot of new faces and a very good international showing this week, which is fantastic. And but of course, the same Aussies have come out in force again, and I think headed up by Ben Snell, local boy from Adelaide, and I'm sure he's ready to show the international crowd how it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben's been coming along in leaps and bounds lately, iRating up accordingly. He's been putting in some great lap times, some great results across the different official races he's been doing. Great to see favourites here like Enzo Cantor and, of course, Tim Hendrickson last week put on a good performance to finish on the podium, if I'm not mistaken, and he's trying to have a good tilt at Monday Night Lights this season. Of course, Monday Night Lights is something we run for the ANZ, the Australian New Zealand Club, to add a bit of interest to our official racing and support our local drivers, trying to have a crack at the overall official season standings. Of course, the stronger the fields that we put on, the more points and iRating that are on offer for those guys to come out and play. So this sort of event where the community comes together is really fantastic, and it's awesome to see such a great turnout, Tim.
Yeah, it is. It is fantastic, and Circuit Zolder is really going to bring out the best in these drivers. It's not an easy place to get around with 3 separate hairpins set out across the track. One at the start, one in the middle, and one towards the end. And it's not an easy place to get around by any stretch.
No, it seems to be a bit more popular than last week's Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Mosport, of course, but which surprises me because they're both great tracks. But I'm interested to see a bit more of a European flavour here tonight because we are at one of Europe's more popular tracks as well, in Belgium here, of course. Partly cloudy conditions here today, 18.3 air temperature with a slight breeze coming from the south. But it is a fun track, challenging with the chicanes and high curbs. So be interested to see if how many of these cars come back intact tonight.
Yeah, be pretty confident there's not going to be too many front wings that are left in A1 condition come the end of the race. But you're spot on the money that you try and gain an advantage by taking that apex that little bit tighter. You're guaranteed to get damaged. There's no if, buts, or maybes. And that's going to compromise your lap. But if you damage it enough, you forget it. You're not going to pass anyone. Your race is over. You'll lose the front wing altogether, and you've got no hope of challenging for the win. So the person who can do the good, clean laps, I think is going to come away from this event pretty well with it. You know, a good bag full of points.
Yeah, I agree with you. Limiting the damage, surprisingly, particularly to the front end of your car, this week will be the key to setting consistent and good lap times. I'll apologise in advance, folks. There's a bit of a sound bug with iRacing at the moment, causing that hammering that you might hear in the background. It's a bit of a shame, but we'll press on regardless. Great to see. I just had my highlight there briefly on Mick Gray, who's managed to crack it for a top split run tonight. Great to see Mick back in the top split. He's not only one of the stalwarts of Monday Night Lights, but he was actually our first ever Monday Night Lights event winner. So I know he's been plugging away trying to get back in the top split. Great to see him here tonight, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've raced Mick a good number of times, and he's a good, clean, fair racer, and plenty of talent behind the wheel. And look, he hasn't qualified. I don't think he's qualified as well as he would have hoped. 13th at this stage, 14th, sorry, now. So a little bit disappointing from that perspective, but no doubt he's going to put on a good show and come through with a pretty reasonable result.
Yeah, great. Just having a look at our provisional standings at the moment, just under a minute and a half to go in qualifying. We've got Tim Hendrickson, podium getter from last week, really strong Dutch driver who's been putting in some great results in the past season or so. He's currently sitting on provisional pole. Enzo Cantor, who we ride on board with at the moment, he's coming around for what I assume is either his second lap or his a cool down lap. We just sort of see where
it is his cool down. He popped in a 1:44.9 through the first. I think probably snuck a wheel off or hit one of the chicanes too hard and pulled an off trap through the second lap. So all over for Enzo, unfortunately. And to be honest, having wrapped up round 1 and 2 pretty easily, he'll be pretty upset with a P6.
Yeah, tough work from there.
Qualifying. Yeah, disappointing for Enzo.
Yeah, tough work from there. Interesting to see Eduardo Mortara, who, unbeknownst to me, I have not raced with Eduardo. He is actually a professional license holder, so he's earned his World Championship license, and he's out here to put on a bit of a show tonight. So I'm interested to see how he goes. He's qualified in second by the looks.
And only by a whisker, 700ths off Tim. Super close racing, and yeah, Pro World Class, they don't give those licenses away for free. It's not something you can buy, and if you hold that to your name, it says plenty of good things. You're a bit of a gun at iRacing.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a look in my Wheaties box, mate. There wasn't one in there either, unfortunately. But anyway, moving on to the starting grid tonight. As we said previously, taking it out, Tim Hendrickson with a 1:44.5. Great job from Tim. Second, our pro driver tonight, Eduardo Mortara. P3, Ben Snell, first of the local contingent, and showing great form once again. Joost Jonk, a great driver from the Benelux club. I've raced with Joost before. Should be great to see him out there again. I've always enjoyed racing with him. Håkon Grebstad makes a welcome return and qualifies in P5. Current series leader Enzo Cantor sitting in P6 with his work cut out for him. P7, David J. Burns from the UK and Ireland club. Kevin Henderson, series regular and favourite, sitting in P8. Not a bad qualification for Kevin here tonight, although, as we saw in the previous race, he's actually got some good pace here, so I'll be interested to see how he works his way through the field. Darryl Ridley, another local boy, and Monday Night Lights favourite. Great to see him back here again. Fabian Menetre, apologies Fabian, a welcome addition to the event in P10. John Scholz is in P11 tonight. Sergi Martinez, P12. P13, Brad Parkin. Mick Gray, who we mentioned before, in P14. Canny racer Mick, great to see where he finishes up tonight. Tom Barry in P15. Nathan Davies in P16. Simon Dopp in P17. And Jason Willman, another regular here in P18. And James Chesters rounds out our field of 19 tonight, Tim.
Yeah, we are pretty close to set to go, I think. And yeah, 19 in the field. Pretty hotly contested at the front, and as you said, Eduardo, not a name I'm familiar with either, but Ben Snell, Joost Jonk, Håkon and Enzo, all within 4/10 of Tim. It's going to be difficult to pass, so make no mistake.
Yeah,
and as I said earlier, if you're going to ride the curbs, you're going to come away with some damage, and it's going to spell the end of your night pretty quickly. But be cautious here, because the chicanes will catch you out every time.
Absolutely, and green flag, we're underway. Tim Hendrickson getting a good start there. Looks like Enzo. No, who's that? It's Eduardo tucking in behind him as they approach into turn 1. Tell you what, Tim, there's a few passing opportunities around this track. Sorry, I've heard some contact in the background. Just trying to pick who that. Nathan Davies looks to be joining his way back in at the tail end of the field there, with Sergi Martinez jumping into the pits.
Yeah, I've got Miles on the back of the field, but didn't catch that, unfortunately. But Tom Barry running very close to Brad Parkin at the moment, clipped the back of him. Bit of wing damage, unfortunately. Could compromise Brad's race, impact the rear end grip and a bit of the straight line speed, unfortunately.
Yeah, it looks like there was a bit of argy-bargy at the front as they come through the first chicane for the first time. Very challenging corner here, or chicane there. The guys have navigated quite successfully there as they make their way around the back part of this circuit on lap 1. A little bit argy-bargy at the start, but predominantly the field looks to have got through okay, and it's already divided into a pack of 2 by the looks, with Is that Sergi's still in the pits there? Sorry, my telemetry hasn't updated properly. Brad Parkin in the midst of that second group. But Tim Hendrickson out in front now with is that Ben Snell sitting in second place? Already got past the pro driver and doing fantastically well.
Well, Enzo comes croppers with, who is it? Juice Young gets up the inside. Bit of damage. Juice runs wide, and I dare say he's going to head for the pits. Wouldn't be surprised at all if his wheels were completely out of whack as he approaches pit lane now. Carries on, but Enzo runs down pit lane. Looks like he might have made contact with someone as he attempts to enter the pits.
Yeah, I'm just going to look at that again. Of course, this pit lane comes in. You come pretty hard and fast into this pit lane on the approach to it while the person in front of you is braking for the chicane. I'm on board here with Enzo. He's looking to make a run at the pits by the looks, and he's just run straight up the back of Kevin Henderson, who was looking to take the corner naturally as Enzo tried to make his way into the pits. I doubt that either driver will be happy with that.
Yeah, terrible form by Enzo. You have to expect the guy in front isn't going to, who hasn't been involved in an incident, who's raced cleanly for that open lap, isn't going to want to go anywhere near the pit lane. And yeah, Kevin's going to be very upset. Down in, what is it, P14 at the moment, with a lot of work to do. And a rear wing full of damage. He's not going to be doing the lap times he's used to around here.
No, way down in 14th, down 6 spots, just right on board with him now. He does look to be absolutely carrying some rear wing damage there. That's you're right. Probably not something that Enzo will look back on with great fondness, and I'm no doubt Kevin will either. Just riding on board with that front pack now. It's down to about 4 cars now with Håkon Grebsted trailing on the back of there, nicely tucked up in draft. Our newcomer to the series, Eduardo, he's in P3 with Ben Snell putting it to Tim Hendrickson, who seems to have the hot hand tonight.
Yeah, it's exciting up the front. Just on board with John Schultz at the moment. Looks like he got a mega slowdown through the second chicane. I'm going to say it probably cost him somewhere in the vicinity of 4 or 5 seconds. He was leading the third group in P8. I'm going to say he's back down in P13, 14 now with a terrible run through the chicane. But the group, I think, led by Mick Gray now, 4 or 5 cars close together, and hopefully those lot can put together some good laps and work their way forward to catch up to Darryl and Fabian.
Yeah, absolutely, Mick in the cut and thrust of it with Eust after having that earlier incident. That should shape up to be a good race. Mick's a very canny racer. Eust is also a great competitor, but very fair in his racing too. So interesting to see how that one shapes out. Brad Parkin and Tom Barry closely racing with Simon Dopp there in a battle for the final point scoring positions in Monday Night Lights. Of course, we score down to P12 in the top 3 splits for a little side action that we've got going here to add a bit of interest. Our current series leader after 2 rounds is Enzo Cantor. Notable absence tonight is our current series podium holder, or P2 I should say, Dennis Johansson. He's sitting in second, but he's unfortunately not able to make it tonight with family commitments. And Ben Snell, who we're riding on board with at the moment, sitting in third. So he'll be looking to make every post a winner here tonight to advance his chances in the Monday Night Lights.
Yeah, Ben's managing that gap nicely between, sitting 2-3 tenths behind Tim, but also keeping a consistent gap to Eduardo. Surprised to see Eduardo having not made more ground up on Ben and be pushing for that lead, because as I said, it's difficult to pass. We're only 3 laps in, but you only get a handful of chances. So keep an eye on the battle at the front. It should shape up to be a good one.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how Eduardo goes. Of course, you qualify for a World Championship licence on the road side of iRacing with either Formula 1 series or in the GT3. So, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know Eduardo's background from that perspective, but like you say, they don't give those out easily. And he'll be certainly used to close quarter racing, no doubt, particularly if he's come from the GT3 world. But you don't get any closer than we find here in the Skippies. And Ben now sort of tailing off a bit there, had a poor run, it has to be said, through the first few corners, and Eduardo now putting all sorts of pressure on the back of him.
Yeah, it's funny. Ben seems to struggle through the first handful of corners, and it's a difficult section because you spend a lot of time waiting to pick up the throttle. You get the car sideways just a tiny bit on entry. It feels light. You can't get on the gas too soon, or you're going to run wide on the exit of turn 2. pick up a lot of ripple strip. It'll either chuck you sideways and throw you into the fence, or it's going to cost you a lot of time and a bit of wing damage as it impacts your run down the straight towards the first chicane for the track. But Ben looks very, very strong through the second half of the track as he's pulled a small gap on Eduardo, and he brings the gap from to Tim back in just a small amount.
Yeah, well, it's not really a draft track around here. The draft, if you're good enough, might keep you in touch with the car in front, but it's certainly not going to give you an opportunity to pass. The straights really aren't long enough, with perhaps the exception into the first chicane, but you're a brave man to pass there, as we've seen in the previous race. And certainly in my racing during the week, you can see plenty of people come unstuck just taking the chicane with the high curbs that are there that can damage your car, let alone trying to make it side by side. So these guys really look to have established a good break. They're about a little over 3.5 seconds in front of David Burns, who we see trailing in the distance, with Darryl Ridley, who's doing really well already. He's up 3 positions in this quality of field, which is a great effort for him. He's trying to chase down David, but they're now out 4 seconds at least, with Darryl in a hard-fought battle with Fabian just behind him in cars 10 and 11. They're making a great fist of it and stand to get some great points on iRating out of tonight's race already.
Yeah, Fabian's probably batting a little bit above where I'd expect him to be positioned. 2787 iRating, so he's you know, pretty skillful. Licensed though, so you know, he's done what he has to. He's raced in some higher classes before and back racing skips tonight, but yeah, it looks like he's in for a pretty good battle with Darryl, who, as we know, I've raced with Darryl a number of times. He's very clean. Very fair, but a hard racer at the same time. So hopefully those two, you know, keep P6 and 7 at the moment. He'd be pretty happy with those results in this field, and I don't expect too much to happen at the front that would allow those guys to creep forward. But yeah, 1.4 behind David J. Burns, who's managing P5 pretty nicely at the moment.
Yeah, although he is slipping behind. He's now out to nearly 5 seconds, so he's lost nearly a second in that lap. But we might jump back up and see how those front runners are going. If we hop on board Eduardo, we'll just hop on board the nose cam. No, I've grabbed the wrong one. Let's see what Hawkins doing here. He's now tucked in and behind Eduardo there. He's making a welcome return to Monday Night Lights, his young Hawken. His iRating's down a bit because he's been dabbling in different series, but we all know that the Skippies are where he's sort of made his home for the majority of brandishing the Team Ovaltine logo here tonight, representing Team Ovaltine. He's doing a great job here in P3. We've lost Ben, have we? Where's Ben? No, he's just tucked in behind. I missed that move there, but yeah, so Hawkins sitting in P3. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
I'll just see if I can catch where Ben made a mistake. Hasn't got any real damage though, so I'm going to say he probably caught a slowdown. Let's see if we can figure that one out as we go back. No, he made a mistake at the first chicane. Tim pulled back across in front of him. Just an error under brakes. Got sideways, picked up too much curb on the entry, ran off through the dirt, and that was it. P2 to P4.
Yeah, and a tough road to hoe from here, it has to be said, because you know, we haven't seen any overtaking in this front group. Tim Hendrickson really showing his class here tonight. He's a good leader. He's managing that gap really well, and it'll be interesting to see what's going through his mind as we see Eduardo sitting in behind him. I don't know how many pro drivers Tim's raced with, or whether that affects his thinking going into the race, but he's certainly leading from the front and doing it well so far.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought he's too nervous, to be honest. He's got plenty of experience, although only been iRacing for about 12, 18 months now. But extremely talented, considering the you know, very good driver. He doesn't use high-end equipment like the majority of the guys who race here, on a shoestring budget, and that won't stop him, though, that's for sure. Looks like the gap across the line is going to be around the 8/10 mark, so consistent across the lap. The key here is if you can get it out to a second, that's going to be enough of a buffer for there to be zero benefit for Eduardo in the slipstream.
Yeah, 100%, although even at 8/10, it's hard to get anything back. They're heading through the first series of corners now as they head around towards turn 4 on lap 7, about half distance at the end of this lap. This is really the only straight where you might just get a sneak of 5th gear. in the draft, and the only chance really that you've got to make any use of that draft. So at the start of that straight, about 0.78 of a second behind Tim, and depending on what sort of run he got there, he's down to about 0.4. So he made good use of it there. It'd be interesting to see, although, who's that dropping back now? Hawkon. Did Hawkon pick up a slowdown there? Or let's just maybe jump back and see what happened there.
Yeah, looks like he has. He's gone too late under brakes after picking up a bit of dirt on the exit of turn 3. And the entry to the chicane, he's gone way too late.
Yeah.
And driven well. And look, I think it was a smart move. Realise he's braked too late. If you try and make the chicane, chances are you're going to end up in the wall. He said, nah, bugger this, it's not working. And took the trip across the grass. Probably cost him, obviously, 1 position, maybe a second in a slowdown. But he's got away without any damage, so he can continue to race hard for the remaining 7 laps.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. I think he's taking the right option there. He's bailed out rather than damage his car. You can see he's not carrying any damage out of there, but he would have copped a slowdown out of it. But yeah, I think that's the very prudent thing to have done there. Interestingly, Tim Hendrickson's sporting a nice little mustache-shaped front wing, looking like he's been riding some of the curbs as he grabs a bit of dirt on the exit of turn 1. But he's continuing to lead this race well, and he's almost got that magic 1 second mark. Ben Snell now sitting in 3rd position in a hotly contested race with Hawkon now. They've sort of dropped off the back here, so it looks like it's going to be a race in 2 unless these two can figure out something on how to get on back of the front 2.
Yeah, I think Ben's going to be disappointed that he is just over a second behind Eduardo. And really the pressure from behind, from Hawkon, not going to be easy for Ben, who's got him right up his clacker. Not going to be easy for Ben to have the eyes forward and focus on trying to gain some ground on P2.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're really starting to drop off now, so they're already out to 1.1 seconds, although, having said that, Eduardo's, he's sort of just hanging on to Tim there. I think really now it's Tim Hendrickson's race to lose. He's doing a fantastic job out in front and leading from flag to flag. If we drop back a bit further in the field now, Daryl Ridley's on the head of a tightly contested bunch with Fabian Menetre, sorry Fabian, and Eust Jonk fighting back again after that earlier incident. Good battle pack of 3 there with David J. Burns, as we mentioned, sort of in no man's land between the front 4 and this battle pack of 3 here. But this looks to be a hotly contested little race here with Eust now moving to the inside into the final chicane, looking to make that move stick. Daryl giving plenty of racing room there, and the JP special livery there tonight that he's made famous over the last few seasons. Now he's fighting back. That's a really smart move there by Daryl. He let the running go through that chicane, then pulled out to the outside. But Eust there taking a defensive line. Really, Daryl's going to try the over-under, but Eust runs wide here again. Sets him up for the inside now of the next corner. Great defensive lines there from Eust without compromising too much on time or position there. No danger for either man in those cars, and a great little series of corners.
Yeah, important for those two guys to not forget that they're only a couple of seconds behind David. You know, and all it takes here is, with so many chicanes, a poor entry, a little bit sideways, take a bit too much speed, catch too much curb, and those guys will be right up, in the mix for P5. So it's easy to get carried away here and think, I'm just going to push that a bit harder, try and take that position. But when P5 is there for the taking, just with the smallest error. Speaking of taking, Daryl Ridley must have got a slowdown. Wouldn't be a big one, but he gives up P7 to Fabian. Just lets him slingshot past on the inside, and I guess that is what happens when you take a bit too much curb through the chicanes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he has dropped back a bit there. I think he's probably just managing the tail end of that slowdown, but it's really given Eust all. Have you spotted something in the background, mate?
Yeah, Mick Ray's got just a little bit caught up, I think. Entry to the second chicane, and he's taken a bit too much curve. We spoke about this, and actually it was on the exit of the chicane, the right-hander, and he's taken too much curve, done it by himself, and spun around, lost 3 or 4 positions in the process. Unlucky for Mick, he was in P10 looking pretty nice for a good haul of points.
Yeah, bad luck to Mick there. He's gathered it up though. He's back now in P13 by the looks. But yeah, like you say, a disappointing one for him there, and not a great or an auspicious return to the top split for Mick tonight. Jumping back up to the front now, we've got Tim Hendrickson now with our pro driver here tonight, Eduardo, all over the back of him. And Tim's left the door open here into the first chicane, although Eduardo just tucks back in behind. They're on lap 10 now, folks, so just the balance of 5 to go, 4.5 laps remaining. Be interesting to see what sort of strategy Eduardo brings to this event, and how the young Tim Hendrickson, who doesn't lack a bit of confidence, it has to be said. It'll be interesting to see what he has in store for Eduardo tonight.
Yeah, I'm keen to see what tricks he can pull out of the bag, but Eduardo just dipped down into the 43s with a 143.943. To crack a 43 around here, whether you have draft or whether you don't, exceptionally difficult. So Tim has a higher I rating than Eduardo, but make no mistake, this guy can steer. There's no question of that. So yeah, I'm interested to see what the next, 4 laps to go, they bring us, but it's difficult to pass. So yeah, I'm relatively confident. I'm going to call it. I reckon Tim can hang on to this.
It's Tim's race to lose. Well, there you go. So I've got to say, I've been watching these two for the last lap or so, and it looks to me like Eduardo's pulling out in the drafting zones. He's not looking to make the move quite yet. And whether or not that's just him showing the nose, or whether or not he's not confident of making a pass here at this track yet, it's not clear to me as yet. But with the balance of 4 laps remaining, what do you think his keys to victory here tonight are for both these drivers up the front, Tim?
Yeah, it's going to be good to see how it plays out. But Eduardo's going to throw everything at him. That's clear as day. It looks like Tim, though, stronger through the last half of the track, and Eduardo, I think, very, very comfortable through the sections where I spoke of earlier, the amount of time you spend out of the throttle waiting for the nose to come back around but maintaining the speed at the same time. I think Eduardo is just so confident through the first few turns, and Tim's very, very strong at the back half of the track.
Yeah, it's really interesting because those first few corners lead up to one passing opportunity in the first chicane, and then possibly the second best passing opportunities into the final chicane, where Tim seems to be able to hold him out. And certainly my preference, if I was in P2 here in Eduardo's shoes, would be to take my chances at the second chicane, or sorry, the last chicane, the second of those 2 opportunities, because it's a safer. You don't have mile-high curbs to deal with. And that could potentially damage your car for whatever's left in the race. As they come up to the complete lap 11 now, just the 3 remaining here tonight, and Eduardo nose to tail with Tim Hendrickson chasing this win tonight.
Yeah, it is pretty tight. We're going to see as he pulls a little bit of draft, not choosing to swing out, although he gets out of the throttle, maintains the gap into turn 1. Tim gets a little bit sideways, but as Eduardo looks to run wide, get the best line into turn 2. It's a funny one though, Alex. I got to say that the line into the chicane isn't too difficult to defend, because the chicane is not one where you can never run too wide. There's one line through there, and it's the racing line. And if you're trying to go around the outside, you're going to catch the curve. There's no question of that. So, you know, Tim would only need to sit to the left, and Eduardo really has nowhere to go. So interesting to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, 100% correct there. It looked to me like Tim thought about taking a defensive line. He certainly took a defensive line into the final chicane last lap round, but Eduardo really not looking to take advantage now. But if we jump back now to Håkon Grebstad, he's, from what I can see...
he actually just caught a slowdown through the second chicane. And gave up the position to Ben. It probably only cost him 2 or 3 tenths, but that was enough. And that's only a tiny cut. It's getting a wheel a little bit too far over the curb. Look at his front wing, probably sustained a little bit of damage as he looks to chuck it perhaps up the inside of Ben. No, hits the brakes that little bit early, sits back, and allows Ben the opportunity to take the apex through the right hander leading up to the last chicane of the track.
Yeah, Ben's just a little bit inside there, making sure that Hawken doesn't want to duck up the inside here. We're coming to the closing stages of lap 12 now, with just the 2 laps remaining. Hawken, nice little ride on the first apex of that final chicane. Runs a bit nice track out there wide on the tail end of that chicane, and as they cross the line now with 2 to go, he's really just tucked up in under there. It'll be interesting to see where he decides to make his move.
Interestingly, back at the front, Tim and Eduardo are coming up on a little bit of traffic. Jason Willman likely to let them through as he moves over to the right, but Eduardo's looking pretty racy. He crossed the line less than 2/10 behind Tim as he sits up more or less right under the rear wing. Gets off the throttle nice and early, turns the car in as they run down the straight up to the first chicane.
Yeah, Tim using every bit of the track now as there's just these 1.5 laps remaining. Eduardo showing the nose on the approach there. Deep under brakes, both of them there, making a nice little clip of that first rise. Tell you what, that left-hand apex there, the curbing there is really deadly. The right-hand one on the exit of that chicane is a little bit more friendly, but both will do you a fair bit of damage. If we look down at the front of Eduardo's car as we look on the gyro at the moment, it's got a little bit of wing damage, but we know Tim does as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects these guys, but it's really nose to tail right here, and Eduardo putting all sorts of pressure on Tim at this late stage.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's lap 13. They're going to cross the strike in a minute, and it'll be the final lap. Wouldn't want to move too far from this battle, but there's a number of good battles going on through the pack. Ben and Håkon, David Just, Fabian tied in for P5, 6 and 7 at the moment, and Tom Barry, Brad John, and a handful of other guys battling for P9 and so on. So it's going to be a good last lap, though. Keen to see what Eduardo can throw at Tim as they cross the strike for the final time.
Yeah, well, Eduardo tucked right up behind now. Is he going to make the move into turn 1? No, he's not. Not even forcing Tim to go defensive there. He hasn't got much of this lap remaining. Be interesting to see what he's got in this little bag of tricks that he might be carrying around in this tiny little skippy now. Nice wide entry into there, using all the track on entry, opening up the corner nicely. He's tucked right in there, just less than 2/10 behind the nose, tucked right up under the rear wheel. Makes a move up the inside of the approach to the back straight. Oh, it's a terrible camera angle. I don't think there was any contact there, but forces Tim wide. He left him room, but Tim was unable to keep it on there. Takes a strategic 1x, as do pretty much everyone just behind them. And Tim, though, taking the deep under brakes into that final run through the first chicane, manages to hold the defensive line well. Now Eduardo pushing to the outside of the next chicane, although he's got the inside run through there. Tim once again defending into this second chicane, makes it work again, side by side, little touch of wheels there, but they managed to get through. Tim might be lucky not to get away with a slowdown there, but they manage again, side by side through the second part of this final lap. What are they going to do? Tim on the outside of the little kink, but he'll be on the inside of the run into this final heavy braking zone for the right-hander on the approach to the final chicane. 2 by 2 for most of this laps, people. How will it end?
Oh, looks like Eduardo got a bit cautious at Tim. Pulled to the left, yielded the position, but he's going to make a move. Is he going to slot in there under brakes? It's going to be difficult to chuck it up the inside. Tim gives him plenty of room. Perhaps just a slight touch as Tim gets through the second part of the chicane cleanly. Phenomenal last lap. What a great end of the race. And Tim Hendrickson, your winner tonight from Eduardo Mortara.
Fantastic racing there. Looks like Hawkon's just managed to pit Ben Snell on the line. Behind them, David J. Burns. No, it's Just Yonk in front of David Burns and Fabian Mentry. Daryl Ridley dropped off the back of that pack. He's finishing down there in P8. Good return for Daryl there this week. Oh, triple car battle as they cross the line here. It looks like it's Tom Barry that's taken that P9. Brad Parkin in P10, but hang on. As the rest of the stragglers come around, we might, I think everyone's finished, although Kevin Henderson looks like he might still be making just the final person to cross the line there, with perhaps the exception of James Chesters, all the way back here, just finishing out his race. And we'll wait for James to cross the line so we can take a final look at the results. But what did you make of that finish there, Tim? It was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, nice to see them go from the second chicane, mid-track, basically side by side the whole way through, give each other enough room to not hit, to race cleanly, not pick up any 1Xs, to to race away. That's what Skivvies is all about. So fantastic end of the race. That's what we're looking for in Monday Night Lights. And Tim Hendrickson, I'm sure he'll be pumped. That was a very good result for him. And Eduardo Håkon, Ben, also pretty happy. Looks like the gap between Ben and Håkon, though, less than a tenth of a second. So pretty tight. That's what we expect from MNL.
Yeah, absolutely. What a fantastic display by the drivers here tonight. Let's go through your full results, folks, so we can see where they finished top to tail. Tim Hendrickson, of course, taking out a spectacular win here tonight over Eduardo Mortara. Side by side for the better part of 3/4 of that final lap. Spectacular racing. They put on a fantastic show and deserved their finishes tonight. Håkon Grebstad, welcome return to the Monday Night Lights, finishing the podium positions tonight. Ben Snell was hard fought throughout. Those top four in a tight battle at the start of the race, but just the class perhaps, or the extra pace and track time for Tim and Eduardo really showed out there in the end. Just Jonk rounding out your top 5 with a great battle with David Burns and Fabian Menatre, sorry Fabian again, in Ps 5, 6 and 7 respectively. Darryl Ridley, after being in the mix early on, finished in a solid P8 tonight. Tom Barry from the UK and Ireland Club in P9. Brad Parkin, another local boy, rounding out your top 10 and putting on a good drive tonight in this quality field. John Scholtz in P11, another local guy, although he's got a bit of the South African accent, but we'll call him an Aussie for now, with Simon Dopp in P12. Enzo Cantor, disappointing finish for Enzo tonight after those early incidents, and certainly he and Kevin Henderson in P14 will probably be having some stirred words in the chat if they haven't already, I imagine. James Chesters in P15, Jason Willman in P16, Mick Gray, an unfortunate or disappointing return to the top split in Monday Night Lights for Mick Gray tonight. We saw that cell spin, and that's cost him a number of positions, and he's finished up in P17. Sergi Martinez and Nathan Davies rounding out the field tonight. Both appear to have retired, if I'm not mistaken, are only retirements for the evening. So, well, folks, that was a spectacular race, spectacular final lap. A lot of ducks and drakes going on between those smaller packs of drivers, but certainly some high-quality driving at the front end of the field there, Tim.
Yeah, it was a very good race tonight, and I'm sure there's plenty of happy drivers out there. And Zolder's a track that can really throw up plenty of, it's a real battle of attrition. A lot of cars often end up with more damage than they'd like, and it's just so easy to pick up the 1Xs and the slowdowns, and that can really cost you a race. As we said, that 1 second, that's the magical number. If you're outside of that, chances are that if you've got the same pace as the guy in front, you're not going to catch him if you're more than a second behind. So it can really ruin your race, those chicanes. But it looks like the majority of the guys got through pretty cleanly. But tonight I feel for Kevin. He's the sob story of the night. Unlucky. I know he's had a couple of incidents with Enzo today, and as you said in the chat, I'm sure those two will be having a chat to hopefully not come together in that manner again.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we've got a couple of people in the green room tonight. We might go in finishing order. We'll bring up young Ben Snell, see what he's got to say. Ben Snell, Alex McKellar and Tim Gorkrotch are here, mate, in the RRTV commentary booth. Welcome on board, mate. Good racing out there tonight. Was it as hot on track as it appeared to us?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, it was pretty bloody hectic out there tonight, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, mate, it seemed like it was. It was a lot of fun, I have no doubt. But you did have your fair share of incidents along the way. It looked like you might have picked up a slowdown, or you were racing so hard for P1 there with Tim Hendrickson. What sort of led to your undoing there and dropped you off that front pack?
I messed up one of the chicanes, which is pretty easy to do, and just popped me out sideways, and I had to run through the dirt. And by the time me and Hakon made that many mistakes that we dropped off the draft, it was just basically a battle between us for third.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it looked like you had a good battle too, trading paint. Not quite so much, but certainly both of you seemed to struggle a little bit through that first chicane. Was that a tricky corner tonight with all things considered?
I actually found the second chicane was more challenging. I kept understeering out of it.
Oh, okay. So, actually, Tim, I think, might have some comments on that. He picked up a few things. He thought you were a bit stronger in different parts of the circuit too. I'll hand you over to Tim.
Yeah, Ben, nice job tonight, mate. I'm sure you'd be chuffed with P4. But of course, you'd love to be on the podium. I got to say though, yeah, I agree that Alex and I discussed during the race that you were stronger in some parts of the track than others, but it's difficult to get away from anyone here. The draft doesn't play its role like on some of the tracks with longer straights, but still, unless you've got a genuine speed advantage, you're rarely going to get away. And just looking at your best lap and Hawkon's, only 1/10 between you, and I guess that made for some really tight racing. And you got to say you'd be pretty happy with P4 tonight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the best Monday night result I've had so far. So I don't think I've had a podium yet, but it's great racing with Hawkon. Like, there's a lot of respect there between people, so you can trust to run wheel to wheel, and you're not going to bin each other most of the time.
Yeah, I've raced against Hawkon a handful of times too, and he's clean. And that's what you're looking for, someone you can trust when you want to go too wide. And we caught a fair bit of you guys racing tonight, and that certainly was the case. But you guys gave each other plenty of room and put on a good show. But tell us though, I mean, recently your performance has improved significantly. Are you putting more time in, or you figured out the skippy, or what do you put that down to?
I think I've clicked a little bit more in the skippy, and I'm racing the Mustang less, so I don't unteach myself every week.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, as you try and learn different classes, and different cars have different styles, and the skippy is unique. You got to be a bit gentle at times, and other times you really got to muscle it around the track. But yeah, I can relate to that as I try and learn other classes, and I guess the skippy is what I know and love. But yeah, you're on the money that you try and drive something else. You go back to the skip, or vice versa, and sometimes you can find yourself pretty lost out there.
Oh, definitely.
Well, mate, great job tonight. I'm sure you're chuffed next week. No doubt there's a podium in store. You're qualifying, mate. You're qualifying well. I'm sure you'll put it together in no time at all.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome work tonight, mate. Ben, before we let you go, anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just as usual, thanks to you guys for putting the broadcast on. I know it's a lot of work. You guys are getting better every week, which is great to see. Timmy's learning what to do now, so it's working really well.
I'm glad he is, mate. Someday I might too. So.
You're a pro, mate. What are you on about?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, Alex,
you did just see what was on the screen then. Anyway, all right, mate.
I'll look back at it anyway.
Thanks, mate. Well done tonight, and we look forward to seeing you back next week.
Thank you very much.
All right. If we're going to stick with tradition and go in finishing order, we'll bring Mr. Hendrickson up and see what he's got to say, our race winner.
I have to drop you here, man.
Hello, Mr. Hendrickson.
Oh, hello. Hello. How's this mic? First, before we start, how's this microphone?
Yeah, it's all right, mate. I might just turn you down a touch, but that's okay. We've got that sorted.
Good.
How'd you go tonight, mate? Well, I know how you went, mate. You led from flag to flag. That was a spectacular performance in a strong field in front of a pro driver. How did you find the racing out there tonight?
Oh, I really love this track, and I'm really happy with the result. It was a really fun race, especially the last lap. That was crazy.
Yeah, mate, that last lap, we followed you guys pretty much throughout, and it was absolutely spectacular. Side by side, I think, from the first chicane, if not before. And, that was just quality in and throughout, mate, with Eduardo there. Have you raced much with Eduardo before?
No, but I do know he's a DTM and Formula E driver, so, I can proudly say that I beat him.
Wow, that's fantastic. So pro in iRacing and actually pro in real life, mate. That must give you a lot of confidence.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome. All right, mate, Timmy, I'll hand you over to the other Tim in the box and see what our resident expert has to say.
I don't know about that, mate. I've never beaten a pro world-class driver before, so you've got the wood over me at the moment, mate. But no, tonight was killer. I'm sure you've... we don't need to harp on about it. You've TQ'd the majority of the races. You've got pole the majority of the races that you've competed in. I dare say you've won most of the ones too, but some tracks just click, and it's pretty clear that you're very, very comfortable here, where a lot of guys struggle through those chicanes. Looks like you get the car turned in and back on the power nice and quickly, and it's the kind of place you enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, the chicanes is all about managing the risks throughout the race. You can't push too hard. You just got to keep it calm for the early laps. And if you get confident, you can just slam through those chicanes. You can actually gain quite a bit of time if you do it.
Yeah, nice one. Now, I think we've got Circuit of the Americas next week. Is that a place you like? It's a unique track to race on, and one I personally like.
No.
How's that go for you?
I might have to take a drop week.
No, you can't do that. You didn't win last week or week 1. So,
man, I don't like that track, Tim.
Nah, it's fantastic. You know, there was a lot of criticism when it was announced. I think it got a gig last season too. And a lot of people said at the start they don't like it. It's difficult. It's frustrating. It's whatever. And I felt the same way. And then once it clicked, it was just such a pleasure to race on. So get in there and practice, mate. And we hope to see you back on Monday night for
just have a look in YouTube chat. Just have a look in YouTube chat, Tim. I don't think anybody likes that place except you, then.
It is just me. I'm fine with that.
You're special.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, Tim. Before you head off for the night, mate, any Team Orange and Blue people you'd like to give a shout out to?
I'd like to give a shout out to, oh God, I need to get creative. You, of course, you guys with your fantastic broadcast. I can't wait to watch it back.
I bet, mate, every bit of it, every second of it a winner, so to speak. Yeah, good job tonight, mate. We look forward to hopefully seeing you back next week. This will jump you well and truly up in the standings, I expect, depending on how the lower splits went. You may even be up in the podium positions at the moment, so something to defend and build on for the rest of the season, mate.
Nice, I'll take that.
All right, mate, well, we'll catch you again next week. Thanks for dropping by.
See ya.
See you, mate.
All right, our final interview tonight will be with Mr. Enzo Cantor. It'll be interesting to see what he's got to say after what was quite an eventful race. I'll bring him up. Enzo, Alex McKellar here and Tim Gorkrotcher joining us here in the booth again tonight, mate. Quite an eventful race there, one that I'm no doubt it certainly doesn't live up to the last couple of weeks that you've had anyway, mate. How did things play out for you in the cockpit?
Hi, guys. Well, I'm not happy at all. I'm very disappointed, and the reason why I'm here is only to apologize for the contact I caused. And I simply was not able to manage this track. So with a fast pace, I really don't like this track and too much curbs, too much off tracks, too much qualifying missed. So I was very nervous as before starting the race, and another missed quali lap. So I was very nervous. And for the first contact, I was perhaps a little bit wide, but it was, I think, 80% my fault because I was braking from far away, and probably he didn't expect my move. He could leave a little bit of room, but it was, I think, my responsibility at 80%. For the next one, yeah, my brain was completely closed. I was crying, and yeah, I went into Kevin, rear-ending him and destroying his car, and well, it was a really stupid thing. My brain was power off in that moment, and I apologized. I'm a man. I'm not a robot. I have some bad days sometimes, but yeah, he's angry. But I think he's not a saint, so. He caused so many contacts in the past with careless driving. So, well, if I said sorry, it's no good. If I don't apologize, it's no good. So, well, I don't care.
Yeah, look, it's tough in the heat of the moment, mate. It takes a big man to come and admit when he's wrong, and just coming to do that tonight shows what sort of character you've got there, mate. We do appreciate that. Yeah, look, it was a couple of mistakes there. Certainly the one on pit entry, as you say, it's just a brain fade, and it does happen, and certainly appreciate you coming up and saying and apologising and acknowledging that, mate, and because not everyone would do that. So thank you for that. Tim, did you have any questions for Enzo while he's here?
Yeah, we've been talking to the boys about whether COTA, Circuit of the Americas, is a place you look forward to racing at next week. Fill us in on your COTA experiences.
Next week I will not be here because I will go out for work, but it's not a problem because the COTA is the second track I ate after this one. So I think I didn't. I will not lose a chance to win. Again, my apologies to all. I'm a man. It's Easter, so happy Easter to all, and take it more easy sometimes.
No worries. Thanks, Enzo. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Well, I think I have to apologize to my sponsors too for what I combined today. So no thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks to all for let me be in the team in the future.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Enzo, mate. All the best for the coming weeks, and hope you had a great Easter.
Yeah, guys, and happy Easter to you.
Well, there you have it, Tim. Probably a surprising conversation, although, look, myself, I do appreciate when someone can stand up and say they made a mistake, and because not everyone does that. So, well done to Enzo on that, although he's no doubt very disappointed with the outcome and what happened on track tonight.
Yeah, it does take... It takes a bit of something special to be able to say, yeah, look, I made a mistake. Obviously apologising to the person that you made it to. We all have moments like that, though, and good on Enzo for standing up and saying, and I'm sure Kevin would do the same thing if he made the mistake. So there's always next week to make amends for it, and at the end of the day, we're all human, mate. We've all done it before. Important he apologised, and good on him for doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done. So that brings it to us a bit of a close for our racing tonight, on track and off. Fantastic race once again. The guys came out and really put on a good display. That last lap was something to remember. Well done to Tim Hendrickson, Eduardo Mortara and Håkon Grebstad for their podium positions. Tonight, Tim, who took out your drive of the night from what was a pretty spectacular race?
Well, there can only be one tonight, of course, and that was Tim Hendrickson. He led from start to finish. He got the fastest. He was the pole man, and he beat a pro world class driver with real life experience. So, for me, yeah, Tim's got it hands down tonight. Good on him.
Yeah, well done. And begrudgingly, perhaps I'll give it to Tim as well. No, I don't begrudge him. That was a fantastic drive, actually, to learn now a bit more about Eduardo and the fact that he has had real-world experience to that level, and to see the quality at which they were both able to drive was just fantastic. And it's really what Skippy Racing is all about, what we like to bring to our audience as well. So congratulations to both of them. And I'll go along with you, Tim, and say that Mr. Hendrickson's drive was top of the pops tonight. Well, folks, that's about all from us tonight. We'll be back next week. What have you got anything going on during the week, Timmy? Any big races coming up?
Nah, just a couple of skippies on the weekend. I reckon I do like COTA, as I said. So Saturday and Sunday, you'll find me on track. And look, I guess there's a small chance I might even race next Monday night.
Yeah, beautiful. Look, I tell you, you might be having some lonely races out there, judging by the general popularity of Circuit of the Americas. But it'll be interesting to see what sort of lineup we get next week. You're having a week off in the commentary booth. We'll be having the Golden Stig. Mr. Tim Awema will be joining us in the commentary next week. Be interesting to see what the other Tim checking in will bring to the table, and hopefully it'll be similar action to what we saw tonight, and that COTA won't scare away too many of our regulars. But if you're looking for a bit of more on-track action, I'll be streaming over at the Top Split TV on Twitch, doing a few races on Friday and over the weekend prior to returning here on Monday night. Although if you want to see some more Skippy action, I believe the Super Skips are kicking off again this weekend. Is that right, Tim?
That's correct. Sunday night, about 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the session opens. Thanks to Simon Chambers for running that, and feel free to join in the league for a great fun race. What is it, 11 litres maximum fuel, 45-minute race, and a pit stop in there too. Super Skips is a real lot of fun, and any Skippy guys, feel free to join in. 60 car field, and yeah, we're looking forward to a great season of racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Pit stops, the whole works. It's a lot of fun, and will at this stage be brought to you by RRTV, all going to plan. So check out that on this very page for all your Skippy action. There'll be certainly a full book this week as well to keep you occupied on RRTV. But until next time, here at Monday Night Lights, and on behalf of Tim Gorcrotcher, I've been your host, Alex McKellar, and until next time, I will say ciao for now.